we, the defense team, excuse me, were contacted by a number of people and were sent clips of Marquand Washington's direct testimony. And in particular, and this was people watching Fox 6, etc. And of course, I did not see this because I was up questioning him, but the clips were essentially, Judge, that you remember, I don't know if you remember the testimony about him describing Zach in his sleep, and he said, quote, "Die, die, die, motherfucker," end quote.
I do.
So that exact testimony where you had the court TV cameras initially pointing towards Mr. Washington, but then as he was saying those words, those very words, the camera panned to Mr. Gravely, and one can see Mr. Gravely mouthing the words "die, die, die."
Oh no shit! They picked it up.
And so I had members of the court TV staff make a clip of that, so it's unaltered, directly from their feed. And I was going to confront Mr. Washington about that very subject, and also what, more in depth about what his conversations with Mr. Gravely was in terms of preparation, and whether or not that makes Mr. Gravely a witness, that's a question for the court. But I intend to mark that as an exhibit and show it to him, and question him about it.
Audio sounds okay to me.
That when they panned, I repeated the same thing he had just said.
No, you did it simultaneously. It was simultaneous, and it was very clear.
And so why would you have, why would either the video be evidence for the jury, and B, why would I permit Mr. Washington to comment on it unless you're suggesting that you said simultaneously?
Simultaneously.
Unless you're suggesting that Mr. Gravely has been feeding the witness answers.
That's exactly what it looks like. I mean, that's why people contacted us. It's exactly what it looks like.
That's exactly what it looks like.
And it's the same thing with this whole business about Mr. Anderson supposedly putting his lips when his daughter's on the stand or whatever, signals to a witness. So it seems fertile grounds for cross-examination of Mr. Washington. And if the court wants to review the clip that I'm talking about, I'm happy to provide it and mark it as an exhibit right now, because it's compelling, and that's why people sent it to us. I wouldn't have seen it if people hadn't sent it to us.
We're 45 minutes late getting started. So finish up, and then
So
the
report provided by law enforcement regarding what was said by Marquand Washington includes that phrase. So this is not a phrase that was invented in the courtroom. It's not a phrase that is in any way something that the state provided to Mr. Washington in this court. And the judge, I've been exposed to a number of outrageous charges in this case, and the court has patiently listened to those. There has been absolutely no feeding of any testimony to any witness. I have litigated for years and years and years and have no intention of jeopardizing my law license or my career by feeding an individual a witness on what is just a case that's going on in a criminal trial here. And this kind of accusation, and I understand that counsel got it from somebody on the internet. But this kind of accusation is poisonous to this proceeding. And I just want the court to know that,
ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
I don't think it is an avenue that's an appropriate avenue of exploration in front of this jury. It essentially accuses this prosecutor, who they have had to listen to and have this go on throughout this case, and puts in the mind of a jury the suggestion that I have fed some evidence, and it is, and I want the court to see that clip, before it ever made a decision that such a question could be
That's
asked
what I'm
of
worried
Mr.
about.
Washington.
I'm not gonna
And-
lie.
Well, I'm not going to pre-screen what questions might be asked and give approval or non-approval in advance. You'll know. If there's an objection, I'll rule on the objection.
But the taint is out there then, Judge, is my concern.
Well, I don't, if he claims that you were feeding answers, I can't tell him. You can't do that. He's entitled to make that accusation if he wants to. And if it turns out badly for his case, that's not, I don't know how I would preclude him from something that he claims. And I suppose if I have ultimately to make a rule on this subject, then I will look at this video. But that in and of itself is not going to be determinative. Let's just begin. Okay.
Can I ask did the court sign a court order as we were required to do to get some sort of a clip of this interaction between myself and Mr. Washington?
I did not sign any order.
Okay.
I issued a subpoena to Law and Crime, and they provided it for me. And so if there's some foundational question, I have somebody available.
Thanks.
When you actually testified, when you were in that seat last Thursday, I believe it was, you had made a comment about Zach saying, quote, die, die, die.
Oh, here it comes! Here it comes! Here it
Remember
comes!
that? Correct. And while you were speaking those words, you were looking directly at Mr. Gravely, weren't you?
I'm not sure who I was looking at the time.
Okay.
He asked me, I think he had asked me the question, so I may have been looking at him.
Refresh his recollection. Bring in the video.
As you were mouthing those words, he was mouthing them back at you, wasn't he?
I can't say I recall that. I don't remember that.
Okay. One moment, Judge.
Bring in the video. Bring in the video.
Mm-hmm.
Would it refresh your recollection if I played you a clip from Court TV showing that very moment?
I called it. I called it.
From the state's perspective.
Objection, Your Honor. He didn't prepare this. He has no recollection of it.
It's not been
Well,
disclosed.
the question was whether it would refresh his recollection, which would ordinarily not be, just be for the witness to observe,
Well,
whether it would refresh his recollection.
in the context of asking, they explained what it was. I assume the purpose of that was to let the jury know what the item was. So I would object to the phrasing of it. And again, we've had no notice of this. This is not
Just show
Because it's devastating to my case.
Well, yeah, I hate to do this.
Just show him the video and say,
It's
does
about
this
the case
reflect
of
what?
the break.
Do you recall this? I'm going to turn on the lights in here because everybody's saying that my face is so oily it might get invaded. So I'm going to just turn on the light so people know I'm just listening with joy, watching this man get demolished.
Yes.
And what do you remember about that incident?
I remember I was laying there the night before. I told him about the next day, but I was laying there and I was reading my book and I heard him shout in his sleep before he woke himself up.
And what did he shout that you heard?
He said, die, 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 motherfucker.
That is
Quote it and
You got it.
very,
Yes.
All right.
He said, die, 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 motherfucker.
Okay,
You're quoting.
to me,
Yes.
it appears that Mr. Gravely said,
Yes, I did.
die, die, die. And also that he did so simultaneously with the witness.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
You are exposed, sir.
yes,
Impression.
That was
that's
our
the correct impression, Your Honor.
exact assertion, Judge. And therefore, that was the basis of my question.
Ooh, he looks.
I wouldn't
pissed.
have asked if the state hadn't followed up on it, but
Our copy, we
Oh, judge
died
disagrees with
twice,
Chris.
So I don't know
Thank
if
you
the
for the
court
super
has a
chat.
different copy or how that is working.
They're the same. You're right. He only says it twice on camera.
Get him.
Die, motherfucker.
Well, now that I look at it again, the camera actually
That's all.
takes you out of the picture at the point
For
where
the
I say
third.
I saw the third one. So
Mm-hmm.
Die, motherfucker.
Oh,
maybe
he's
it doesn't show
he
it three
knows
times.
it. Look at his
No, it
face.
shows it twice. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to keep this. Give me a copy from the district attorney, okay?
I'm gonna keep this
Yeah.
for my own enjoyment later. Thanks.
Did you hear what he
What?
just said? You can get a
It's-
copy
I
from the
guess it's
district
already
attorney.
marked, so
And I would move for its admission, just so it's part of the record.
Fuck yes.
it's received for record purposes. All
Yes.
right. So what's next?
Are you
Well, my
kidding
next
me?
question
Not a
will be-
sanction, not a tongue lashing.
Well, I don't want to preview it for the witness, but it'll be about this subject.
Okay. You asked the jurors to come in?
When we broke, I think we were talking about the statement you made about your time with Zach and what he said in his sleep.
Correct.
So isn't it true that when you testified on direct, you were taking direct cues in your testimony from Mr. Gravely as he sat here at counsel table?
No, I don't believe so.
He was mouthing the words at you, wasn't he?
After I said it, he did say
The
it.
video says.
He repeated
He was
it.
mouthing the
Not
words
what
at
the
you?
video says.
Yes, he said it after I
That's,
said it.
and that's where you took your cue?
No.
Okay.
Impeach him and show the video. Show the jury the video.
It's in the record now. They might as well.
Impeach him with the video. Say, oh, is that your opinion? Okay, that's your recollection. Great. Let's go ahead and run the tape.
Let's go to the tape.
Run the tape. Run the tape.
That's all I have at this time for this witness. Thank you.
Mr. Griffith.
All I can say is that if he gets convicted, for God's sakes, he has to appeal.
Originally in January, who brought up this idea that in a nightmare the defendant had said, die, motherfucker?
I told you about it.
And and so when you testified on direct, when I was asking you questions, did you have an independent memory of that being what Zach Anderson, the defendant, told you or said in the nightmare that you heard?
Yes.
And did you get any assistance from me in either remembering that or testifying about that at all?
No.
Nothing else.
I have nothing, Judge.
You may step down, sir. Go ahead.
You should have run the tape.